back to my channel. Today I have a very highly requested video for you guys, which is all about living, working, studying, just life in Montreal. My name is Zoe, I'm 24 years old and I live in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, which is one of Canada's largest cities. It is the province of Quebec's largest city, and I frequently get asked on my channel what it's like living in Montreal, what it's like working in Montreal, do I speak French, and just can I make a video about living in Montreal in general. So that video is here for you guys today. If you are new, make sure that you are subscribed to my channel. I make videos about money, I make videos about work vlogs, just all kinds of stuff like that. I would love for you to stick around and subscribe. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up because it helps the algorithm, it makes me happy, and it helps other people find this video. It's just a good vibe to give this video a thumbs up. If you found this video because you are looking to move to Montreal, you are looking for more information about Montreal, I really hope that you find this video helpful. If you have any questions that are not answered in this video, please leave them in the comments down below, or you can send me a message on Instagram. I will love to help you out, so let me know. I also posted on Instagram today if you guys had a Q&A for this video, and some of you guys gave me some questions, so I'll be answering those at the end. So in today's video, just to give it a little bit of structure, I'm going to be telling you guys my story of how I moved to Montreal because I'm not originally from here. We're going to be talking about French. That is a big question that I get asked a lot. Then I want to talk about what it's like working here, jobs that you can get. We're going to be talking about working in Montreal, common jobs, common industries. Then I want to talk briefly about studying if you're thinking of moving to Montreal for school. We are going to talk about social and lifestyle from my perspective. I was a student here and now I am like a young professional. We are going to talk about family living in Montreal, the very little that I know about it, and then I'm going to do the Q&A at the end. So hopefully you guys like this video and get something out of it. Let's start. So really quick, my story is this. I moved to Montreal when I was 18 years old. I moved from Ottawa, which is a town 2 hours away. It's Canada's capital city. I don't know why I called it a town, but yes, I moved from Ottawa to Montreal. I moved here because I wanted to go to school. I went to Concordia University, and I just basically wanted like a bigger city, a bigger experience, and I'd been traveling to Montreal since I was young. A lot of my family members lived in Montreal too, so I feel like there was this legacy for me and my family that I wanted to keep up of, you know, the women living in the city of Montreal. When I moved to Montreal, I didn't really know French. So I came here 6 years ago now. This is my 6-year anniversary. 5 of those years were spent studying, and then now I've been living here as a like working gal for a year. So I've gotten both perspectives. And overall, I really do like living here. I feel like I've gotten a lot out of the city. I've gotten a lot out of my studies here. I've made friends. I've really enjoyed the city, but I've nowhere near explored all that there is to explore. Like this city, you guys, it's never ending. There's so much to do. There's so much art. There's so much culture. There's so many restaurants. There's just so much to do that like 6 years hasn't been enough for me. Like there's just so much left to do. And unfortunately, coronavirus has put a pause on my city explorations, but that's okay. So I've lived in a few different areas of Montreal. I've lived downtown Montreal in my first year. I lived in a residence for Concordia University, and then I lived on the more I would say northwest side. I can say the area now, I guess. I lived in NDG, which was like cheaper housing. I really liked living there. It was like a mix of young people and families, so that was really great. I lived there throughout the majority of my time here. I lived there 4 years throughout university, and then when I graduated, I moved to the Sud-Ouest, they call it, so the southwest part of the city. I'm not gonna say which neighborhood specifically, but yeah, I live in like the southwest part of the city. So although I did my schooling in English, I do know French. So that was a big question that I often get asked is, do you speak French? Oui, je parle français. My French isn't perfect, so like I'll never probably do a video in French. I'm way too shy. I learned French since I was a little kid. I was in French immersion, which is quite common in Canada. But the way I really learned French, like really, was working. So in my first year of university, I got a job at a department store called Simon's. Maybe you are familiar with it. I worked there part-time, and it was a super French environment, and just immersing myself in that French environment is really how I was able to learn French, work in French, like get a job in French, interview, all of that stuff. And it really changed my life and really made me, you know, feel more connected to the city, because you can live your whole life here without knowing French, but it's just not the same. So let's talk about French now. Like I said, you can live your whole life here without knowing French. There are many people who are born and raised in Montreal and don't really speak French. Sometimes they understand it, but they don't speak it. French is a funny language where French people and Quebecois people have this reputation for being kind of snobby, and I've experienced that myself where I'll be speaking French and people will switch to English, and it's very discouraging. Sometimes French people laugh at you or they complain about the English, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it, like, it's not easy. That was one of the hardest things when I was moving here, was like feeling shy at work and feeling shy to make friends because, you know, they spoke French and I didn't know if they would like me, if they would think I'm like a nasty d'anglophone, which if you're from Montreal, you know what that means. If you're not from Montreal, it means a fucking English person. There is a history between the French and the English where there is some dislike between the two, and mostly you see that in the older generations. You'll find like these true blue Quebecois who really don't like English people. I've never encountered that personally, except for once when I was on the train and the person making the announcements on the train was clearly Anglophone, doing their best to speak French, and this woman was making fun of her. So that wasn't very nice, but that's only happened once in my 6 years of living here. So don't let the French, and I mean the French language, not the French people, don't let that discourage you. Like, you can totally move here, you can totally learn French. It's all very, very possible, but I'm not gonna say it's easy. A commonly asked question that I get is, do you need to know French in order to get a job? The answer is no, but it's preferred. Like, you will have so many more options if you do speak French. A lot of places do have being bilingual as a necessity. However, you can find certain companies and certain places that you don't need to speak French in order to work at. I have friends who don't speak French and they have very good careers. For me, it's like, I like that I can know French because I can really go work anywhere. So if you are thinking of moving to Montreal, you don't need to be perfect in French before you arrive here. However, I would recommend taking French lessons and improving your French so that you can have even more opportunities while you're here. That being said, if you're a visitor or you want to move here, do you need French on your day-to-day? That really depends on what neighborhood you're in. So there are some neighborhoods where nobody speaks English. There are some neighborhoods where barely anybody speaks French. Most of the time in my day-to-day, I don't speak French. I speak English. I speak English with people at work. I speak English with my friends. I speak English when I go to the store. Sometimes I force myself to speak French just because I want to, like, I don't want to get rusty. But it really depends. Some neighborhoods are more French than others, like I said. And if you want to move to that neighborhood, you're better off knowing French, or you might feel kind of isolated. But you can find these Anglophone neighborhoods where you will feel really, really comfortable. And some neighborhoods are, of course, bilingual. So let's talk about working in Montreal. There are so many amazing opportunities in this city. I'm just always blown away by how many jobs there are here. We aren't to Toronto, we aren't to Vancouver, but there is lots of opportunity. A huge industry here in Montreal is actually retail fashion. We have giant companies like Dynamite that are headquartered here, Garage. I'm trying to think of some more off the top of my head. Essence is a big one, the online retailer. You can work at Essence. There's also a lot of technology here. So if you are in the tech space, you can do very well in Montreal. There's a lot of industries like CN Rail. A lot of big corporations are here, but we are also home to a lot of startups and small businesses. So Montreal has a really thriving startup community. I was exposed to a little bit one summer when I worked at a coding boot camp, and we have so many cool startups, so many like artificial intelligence labs, data centers. Like, it's really cool. So if you're into tech, like, that could be a really cool opportunity for you to come to Montreal and get a job in that space. But pretty much any job you can think of is available here. Banking, whether it's retail or corporate banking, you know, consulting, which is what I work in, retail, like anything that you can think of, there are opportunities for you here in Montreal. That being said, we don't compare to Toronto in terms of the scale. There are some companies that are worldwide that we don't have in Montreal, and that is kind of a downfall of the city, I find, is we have really strict language laws that prevent certain companies from even entering the market because it's just too complicated. Yeah, I don't really know how else to explain it because there's like a lot of technicalities and legalities behind it. But if you want, you know, the world's your oyster, all of the potentials, you know, in terms of places to work, Montreal might not be your best bet, but if you are satisfied with a bit of a smaller, you know, pool of potential, you can definitely have an awesome career here in Montreal. One really good thing about living in Montreal is your dollar goes a lot farther. So you can make the same salary in Montreal and Toronto, but you can afford like a really big apartment in Montreal, whereas you'd afford like a room in an apartment in Toronto. So that's part of the reason why I stay, is your dollar goes a lot farther, which is really nice. In terms of studying in Montreal, we have 4 universities, which is a lot. Montreal is known as a student city, and you can be Anglophone, you can be Francophone, you can be an international student. There are students from all over the place. One thing I loved about studying here was I did meet people from all over the world, which was super awesome. There are a lot of people from Ontario, like me. There are a lot of people from the US that come study here. Like, it's just super diverse, which I really, really liked. Schooling in Montreal is also very affordable, not only because the universities are affordable, but because the cost of living makes it super affordable. And it's really fun because the drinking age in Montreal is 18, so you can party pretty much from your first day of university, which is awesome, I'm not gonna lie. You also have a lot of colleges that are in the city, and basically, if you're a student, like, you will thrive in this city. It's really, really awesome. If you want me to make a full video about my school experience in Montreal, let me know. But I feel like right now my audience is a little bit older than the college years, so I'm focusing this more on like working, but let me know if you want to see that video. So now I want to talk about the social life in Montreal, which is fantastic. Montreal is known for its nightlife, for its restaurants, and it's the best, you guys. Like, I've been, you know, I'm fortunate. I've been to a lot of places. I've experienced a lot of restaurants and, you know, nightlife scenes, and I can say hands down that Montreal is the best. Like, I've been clubbing in Toronto, I've been clubbing in Vegas, in New York, in Australia. Montreal wins, you guys. Like, it's just so classy. The music is amazing. And one thing that I love is people don't stop going out here at like 21. Like, people keep going out into their 30s and 40s. And I just love that Montrealers really have this like fun lifestyle into their older ages. Like, I'm from Ottawa, and people like settle down in their mid-20s in Ottawa and like stop going out. Like, it's just known for that. And I love when I go out and I see people of all different ages. I see beautiful women, you know, in their 50s that are out clubbing, and I'm like, yes, I want to be like you. Like, that's awesome. So I really love that. We have so many famous restaurants here, so many famous clubs, and it's affordable to go out. Like, the restaurants are a little bit expensive, but one thing I love about clubbing in Montreal is there's barely any cover anywhere. Like, you don't have to pay like $50 to get into the club, which is ridiculous. Like, it's just a very, I find, inclusive, fun, safe, like, clubbing setting. I really, really like that. Like, I feel like I'm a little bit over my party days, especially because of COVID, but I have so many good memories of just like partying in Montreal. It's awesome. I'm not the biggest foodie, so I haven't been to like all of the best restaurants, probably because I'm vegetarian. So a lot of the famous restaurants don't have really stuff on the menu for me. But if you are a foodie, you will thrive in Montreal. We have famous restaurants like Joe Beef, Liverpool House. Oh, just, I can't even list them all. Look it up. There are so many good restaurants here. Another thing that I love about Montreal is its European influence, and you see this in terms of lifestyle, but also in terms of architecture. So when you're walking around, you see really beautiful old buildings. You sometimes feel like you're in Europe, especially when you're in the old port of Montreal, and it's just like, it's so nice because you get so many different vibes. You don't always feel like you're in a metropolis, but you are in a big city. Like, it's great. Making friends in Montreal, I don't think it's the easiest. The reason for that, in my opinion, is one, because of the French and English. It kind of cuts your friend potentials in half if you don't speak one language or the other. It can also make it intimidating to go up to people when you don't know what language they speak. But a lot of the times too, I find Montreal can be a little bit cliquey. So people who grew up here tend to stay with their friends who grew up here. When you compare to a city like Toronto or New York City, when there's lots of new people coming in all the time, so everyone's very open to making friends, Montreal isn't as like that. So, you know, I have had some moments where I feel like I've had a hard time making friends, or people come to university here and then they leave right away after because they don't speak French and they want to go back to like BC or Ontario. So making friends isn't always the easiest, but don't let that be a deterrent. Like, you can do things like join meetup groups, you can take classes like improv classes, or like art classes. There's so many ways to make friends, but I'm not going to say it's like the easiest thing ever. Overall, I feel like living in this city allows me to have a really nice lifestyle as a young professional. I have easy access to nature. We have a huge park in the middle of the city and lots of smaller parks all around. Housing is affordable, so you can really have a nice lifestyle. And there's also just lots of young people here. So, you know, dating and making friends. It's all like super accessible. You don't feel like you know everybody in the city. It's definitely a big city in that sense, and I'm quite happy living here. In terms of family life, obviously I don't have a family into like having kids and a husband, but I think you can have a really nice family life in the city. A big reason for that is housing is moderately affordable. It's not like Toronto where as soon as you have a kid, you're like driven out to the suburbs. Here you can live, you know, in the city with kids, which for me is something that's important because I don't really foresee myself being like a suburb mom. I'd like to be a city mom. And I like that Montreal is, you know, the kind of place where you can live downtown and be comfortable and safe with your kids. In terms of like places in the city, Montreal is interesting because the downtown core isn't actually the most coveted spot to live. It's other neighborhoods such as the Plateau, such as Griffintown, St. Henry, Rosemont, like Westmount is a little bit more familial, but that's like the really bougie part of the city. You have NDG, you have many different areas where people live, and they create these really cool neighborhoods that bring so much culture and so much character that you're not just living in the downtown amongst tons of skyscrapers. And like you can compare this to Toronto where everyone lives in a high rise. Here there's not that many high rises, so people are living in like 4-story apartment buildings, and it really makes you feel like you're part of a neighborhood that has character. And what I love is that people choose where they want to live based off of the character of that neighborhood. So if you are someone who wants to be among, you know, new developments and young professionals, you might go to Griffintown. And if you are someone who wants to be around the art scene, you might go to the Plateau. Like, I love that you can choose, you know, your neighborhood based off of your personality and what you really want to get out of a neighborhood. I think that's awesome. So now let's get into the Q&A portion of this video. You guys asked me some great questions on Instagram, so let's start. The first question is, what are your top restaurants? So keeping in mind that I'm vegetarian and certain restaurants are kind of off limits for me, my favorites are Tacos Victor. They have the best tacos in the city. It's so good. What else are my favorite restaurants? Ryu Sushi is fucking amazing. It is the best sushi in town. It's a little bit expensive, but it's so delicious. I had my birthday dinner there and oh my God, it was to die for. And one of my favorite breakfast spots is called Cafe Melbourne. It's so delicious. So I would say those are my top 3 restaurants. And that question was asked by _KRSC. So thank you for that question. It's Nats asked, do I speak French? Yes, I do. Becca W03 asked pros and cons of Montreal versus Ottawa. So really quick, Montreal just has way more character than Ottawa, and it's more fun. Like, Ottawa is known that if you go out on a Tuesday night at 7 p.m, the streets are dead. Like, it's very much known as a sleepy government town. However, one thing that I love about Ottawa is all of the nature and how calm it is. Like, just, I don't know, I feel like Ottawa is very peaceful and it's a really good place to raise a family. Like, you have so many activities, soccer, ballet, art, like that's really good about Ottawa, and I feel like everything is condensed. So I'd say those are my pros and cons of the city. But for a young professional, I think Montreal is just more fun, I guess. Like, I don't know, there's more to do. Sakshi asked, if I want to migrate from India to Montreal, will I get work as a software developer? So while I can't guarantee anyone will get a job as anything, there is lots of demand for software developers in Montreal. I'm actually currently learning how to do web development, so that's cool. But I think, you know, depending on the visas and all of that, I don't know the answer for, but there is demand for that kind of role here in the city. Do you need to speak French in order to get a job in admin related fields? That was asked by iMoney Yolanda. I would say no, I don't think you need it, especially if you're in an admin field. You could work at, like, let's say a doctor's office or someplace that's more Anglophone. You can definitely find a job that you don't need to speak French for. Next question was asked by Sylv Stang. Difference between being a young professional in Montreal versus Toronto. So I think Toronto, you might have a little bit more opportunity. There are, more companies, more demand. However, Toronto's way more expensive, so your dollar does go a lot further in Montreal. I think Toronto, it might be easier to make friends. However, I think Montreal nightlife is more fun. So definitely pros and cons. I don't think one city is better than the other. It just depends on like what you value. If you want to speak French, if you want Toronto's more of like a metropolis, where Montreal is a bit more of like a cozy city that I find has more character. But then again, I'm not super familiar with Toronto. Fleur Annette asked, how is it to go for a run, safety, pedestrian way, bikes, etc.? So I think it's really safe. Montreal is actually known that their drivers are crazy, but if you're going for a run, you can go like along the canal, you can go in the mountain, on the mountain, and you can go on residential streets where it is really safe. I have always felt very, very safe in the city, even in downtown when I was, out late clubbing or out late studying around campus. Like I've always felt extremely safe. And that's not to say that you don't need to be careful. Like girls, always be careful. Please never take your safety for granted. Like there's always fucking weirdos out there, so be careful. But in terms of going for a run, as long as you're not going out at midnight, I think you're very safe. Kiana Byfield asks, I'm thinking about moving to Montreal for work. How do you recommend finding apartments? So word of mouth is really great. Right now, Montreal is having a weird apartment shortage. So I would say ask your friends if you know people there. Also, Kijiji is a really good way to find apartments. That's how I found most of mine that I've lived in, was through Kijiji. There's also websites like Padmapper, and I think another one called Kangaloo, which is French for rent. That's ways that you can find apartments in the city. You can also join Facebook groups for certain neighborhoods. So let's say you want to live in the Plateau, you can join a Facebook group for the Plateau, and people will often post their apartments that they're renting in the Facebook groups. So Michaela asked, what is your favorite neighborhood and why? Besides the neighborhood that I live in, I would say the Plateau Mile End is my favorite because there's so many parks. I feel like there's so much character, good restaurants, and cute like vintage shops. There's just lots to do. You can walk around, and it's always like a nice place to spend time. I think that's my favorite neighborhood. I also love the Old Port because it's really pretty, and I love to walk around there and like go for dinner or drinks. The Old Port's really awesome as well. And the last question is Danielle Alexa Cook asked, best restaurants and bars. So I already answered the restaurants. The best bars, my favorite place to go clubbing is Flygen. So when the clubs reopen, catch me at Flygen. It is the best club ever. When I was younger, I used to go to this club called École Privée a lot, but I don't really go there anymore. I think I'm a bit too old. And in terms of bars, there's so many nice bars in the Old Port. You have a million rooftop bars like Brasserie 701. You have the William Gray Terrace, that's really nice. It's a little overpriced, but it's nice. Other places that I like to go to are Bar Loic. That's really fun. Where else do I like to go? Honestly, I'm really the kind of person, like I have like one spot that I like to go to, which is Flygen, and I just go there all the time. I'm not so much as like of a bar kind of girl. I really do prefer going clubbing because if I'm gonna drink and spend money, I want to dance. So that's my answer for that. So that's a wrap on this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have more questions, let me know in the comments. If not, I will see you all in my next video. Bye.
Do anything for the cash, yes. Do anything